say this presentation in some ways, well, it very definitely supports what Emma presented, but it reports on work that was done earlier, if that makes sense. So while I'm looking at some of the things that were raised in Emma's session, the notion of transferable skills for student leaders, it was actually conducted with a cohort of past leaders before we set up the Amazing Mentor Scheme. So it will be very interesting to follow on this research with now that we have a mentor as well. What you can see on the slide here are our amazing mentors from the beginning of 2014. The photo was actually taken on the very first day of training, so they're all ever so slightly, but suffice to say, they got to know each other well. So just again, possibly to go backwards a little bit from Emma's session, if you saw that, a little introduction on the PASS program, which again, I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's often called supplemental instruction. I think in the UK you call it PAL. But the idea is very much that these are weekly study sessions. Help, I have just flicked myself offline. Damn, sorry. Help, Michael, I now can no longer see my screen at all. What have I done? I may need to go back in again, I think. 1 second. Sorry, while you're looking at this slide, the idea would be that you try and identify who is the leader in this picture. And some of you may have seen this presentation before. What I would suggest that you do is see if you can guess who the leader actually is. And I'll turn my speakers up, I'll turn my mic up. 1 moment, guys. Sorry. Can you hear me? I think, yep. I don't know. I think it's okay. Can you hear me? All good. All right. So the question here would be, while you're looking, can you identify the past leader in this slide? You get three guesses.
Hi Deb, it's Mike. I'm just kind of interrupting here for a sec. We are getting a little bit of feedback from you. If you have your speakers on, you may want to turn them off because your microphone might be picking your voice up again.
Is that better now? Is the sound better now? Good. Thank you for that, people. All right. Yeah. So, no, not the person standing at the back, not the leader. Two more guesses. No, not the boy seated on the left. Not turquoise shirt sitting on the back. I love this slide because if you do know how the PASS program operates, and building on what Emma said earlier, the whole idea of whanaungatanga is that the group is actually more important than the leader. So the leader is tucked in just at the back here. She's Michael, I have lost my slide controls as well. There she is, tucked way in at the back. Yeah. So Belinda, I like your comment. Absolutely. So these are the PASS study groups, as you know. Now, PASS at Victoria has been going for several years. My slides aren't moving. Here we go. So I've been involved in the program since the beginning. It started very small with 5 groups and 100 students set up by the Commerce faculty in order to help many international students understand sort of how tutorials worked. The idea that it was fine just to talk and share ideas rather than necessarily having to have a correct answer. Over the years, as you can see, it has grown. Across the top in purple is accounting, which has remained strong the whole time. The biggest one, as Emma mentioned earlier, I think is the light blue through the middle. That's the law faculty, where there is restricted entry into second year. So students really appreciate the opportunity to work with a senior student and get a heads up on how the program works. It also has done particularly well in psychology over the years, where they really value the notion of active learning. And as Emma said as well, the idea that in the recent years we have grown. Come on, slide. Taking a while to click through. So that's what we had last year, the 85 groups and things. Now, just talking to leaders, as I say, this is sort of anecdotal stuff. The sense of self-awareness that came through with Emma's presentation and with people's comments as well. The sense that people didn't, I mean, to be fair, our leaders are recruited from excellent students. They're all great candidates in the first place. Usually they certainly have academic skills, they have a passion for their subject. But some of them discovered more things about themselves than they had known before. Confidence, we've identified, we've all noted that as a reflective thing. The quietness thing. Now this actually, potentially, I'm thinking back, although this is confidential, could almost have been a comment from Zoe, who Emma mentioned earlier, who's now grown up to be a mentor. She was a very quiet leader, but she absolutely blossomed in the role. The next one, wanting to become a tutor, which of course is a more senior role in the university and a much more teaching focused role. This leader says that they weren't quite sure, but the role gave them the confidence to go forward. And another one who, as always, found benefits for herself in particular. So these sorts of things came through. Okay, Emma mentioned in her session as well the unique scheme that we have at our university, which is called the Victoria Plus Leadership Program. It's run through our careers service and is particularly targeted towards developing students' employability skills. And this is the promo that goes with the slide. So it's a matter of supporting students, the university and the community, and then volunteering and training, and the graduate attributes, which I'll come on to in a moment. What happens with this program is that leaders gain points for doing things. I liken it sometimes to something akin to the Duke of Edinburgh Award, in that there are different aspects that the leaders need to go through. So they can be involved in university type roles, such as being a past leader, maybe being a secretary or a president in a club or society, being a volunteer note taker or van driver for the disability services, being a Māori or Pacific mentor, those sorts of things. And as well as the university stuff, which can be paid or unpaid, they must also undertake some sort of volunteer work in the community, which can be anything from the Forest and Bird Society, working perhaps in a refugee homework group, those sorts of things. Students who are involved undertake these activities throughout usually three or more years of their degree, and gain points towards it depending on the commitment level. As well as the activities, the service that's involved, they also attend a series of workshops run by careers, so things like preparing your CV, developing confidence in speaking, those sorts of things, and they're required to write a reflective e-portfolio. The award, when students have completed it, is presented on graduation at a separate ceremony, but the details are noted on the academic transcript. And there has been a great deal of support from major sort of businesses and firms at the value that this program is adding in terms of extracurricular development of student skills. So here is our university's graduate attributes. I'm sure your institutions have things that are similar. Now these range widely, of course. Each school and faculty will have specific ones related to its subject, but pulling out of these with particular relation to the PASS program, okay, the understanding of the subject is taken for granted, but we would like to think that being involved as a student leader helps enhance particularly the critical and creative thinking, the communication, which we all know about. Autonomy. Now this is particularly targeted towards academic autonomy, but our PASS leaders work very much by themselves. Not that they are left alone, but that they ultimately have responsibility to target sessions to their students' needs. The openness is important because they're going to meet a wide range of students and again have to build that group setting together. And the ethics, of course, go with being responsible for building a community. And as well, the broader things which lead on towards the more employability skills, international perspectives, engaging with the community, working independently and collaboratively, because leaders, as we've identified, are also part of a team of leaders, as well as collaborating with academics and working with students, and then setting their personal goals. So, we had always felt that leaders got quite a lot out of the program. We certainly hope they did. Over the time PASS has been running internationally, there's been a lot of research on the impact on the participants in the group. Benefits of regular study habits, working together, all the learning skills that they develop. And in some cases, we would hope that it enhances their grades, although that's something that we feel we cannot prove, given that often the students who attend study regularly are the good students anyway, or the ones who are going to succeed. Gradually, there's been a realization, as well as the benefits for participants in peer learning groups, there are also benefits for the leaders. And so in order to test this, to build just beyond the anecdotal feel-good stuff that came of leaders saying, as I identified in the earlier slide, the skills that they hadn't known that they had, in end of 2014, I conducted a survey. It was a Qualtrics survey, and I just collected together all the email addresses of the past and present PASS leaders and sent out an email based on the graduate attributes and the transferable skills that we all know these programs can develop. So how did the experience of being a PASS leader contribute to the development of your communication skills, your critical thinking, your ability to think on the spot, work with other people, all those things? Then which quality did the experience help develop? Most, at least. Why? And this is the particular focus that I want to share in this session, the notion of writing weekly reflections, because these are things that we identified in the earlier discussion as well. It's all very well for us to think that student leaders are gaining these skills, but the awareness of having acquired these skills is also important. So here are my participants. I sent out the survey, as I said, to 300. Not all replied, which is fine, but these are the ones who did. You can see from here, going back, that the majority are still the more recent past leaders, because many of our past leaders are involved in conjunct degrees such as law and commerce or law and arts. Many of these, certainly going back even to 2010, are probably still actually at university. It was harder, of course, to touch base with the ones who had left, because very often I was either going on the student email address or perhaps a sort of a Hotmail or Gmail address that was no longer valid. But looking at it, you can see that there's quite a good number anyway, so at least we were hoping when we did the survey that they could remember what was going on. This is the breakdown of participants. So one of the questions was which course were you a past leader for? It's generally reflective of the involvement that you saw in terms of past across the university. The majority of our leaders are involved in law, then the commerce faculties, engineering and Pacific studies, our smallest. Okay, so the first question, how did the experience of being a past leader contribute to the development of your whatever it was? And this again reflects back very much on what other people have found. Communication, initiative and adaptability, thinking on the spot, confidence is there. Willingness to go beyond the comfort zone, willingness to learn from others, an interesting one, dropping down a little bit, the diversity, thinking laterally and the thinking critically. So they're all quite high, particularly if you go from the questions were asked on a Likert scale, which included, I think, strongly agree and agree down to strongly disagree, but I've conflated the 2 points at the end. You'll see looking at that we had one very unhappy respondent. This person, in fact, you'll see the comments from them later on. They really didn't enjoy being a past leader, which I guess can happen. So in this case, one person out of the 170 found that it really wasn't a good experience. But overall, yeah, these are things I think that can be expected. As you can see, it ties in very nicely with international research. Very often you will find that the terms are slightly different, so it becomes difficult to do a straight correlation across. But these are things, as Emma mentioned in her presentation, things like the organizational skills, the time management, the confidence, those things. Okay, so moving beyond those straight graduate attributes, I also asked them some of the broader impact, if you like. And sometimes, again, it's not sure whether this is because the program, as we drop down, had less of an impact, or whether the leaders possibly hadn't thought about it as much. Or, to be fair, as you'll see later in the comments, that some of these things weren't further developed by being a past leader, because the leaders already had these qualities in spades. As you can see here, it supports the other findings as well. So I don't think there's anything new here, but it was just nice to ask people what they really thought. So following on was, yeah, as well as the whole ranking thing on the Likert scale, was what were the most developed skills? So going through here, communication, absolutely, knowing the right type of questions. One of the other leaders also commented, where is it? In terms of communication, it surprised me at first, they said, the vast variety of different ways students understand the same thing. And the first session was a bit of an adjustment to try and understand the communicative standpoints of subsets of students and develop strategies for being able to clearly and effectively communicate back to them. But they obviously did. So yeah, the whole questioning technique, the confidence thing, the creative thinking, and there's one more, Michael, please, and the critical thinking. So confidence is nice there, a particular example of an international student who became a very successful study group leader, and the supportiveness of the group. The creative thinking, just that awareness that there are other ways of looking at the world, and critical thinking from, unsurprisingly, a political studies leader. In terms of ranking, these were in fact the top 5 most developed skills. Leadership came in at number 3. So I'll just mention that one in there as well. Now, the least developed skills are almost a mirror opposite of the most developed skills. And I also like to think these, particularly as the comments show, are almost positives, if you like. One leader felt that creative thinking wasn't developed because we provided sufficient resources for them. Critical thinking, okay, that's maybe not quite as reflective a comment as we would like, but yeah, all right, possibly it's less easy to think critically if you are dealing with sort of a computational course, I'm not sure. Leadership, that came through quite a lot. As I say, these people are selected on the basis of their leadership experience in the first place. And so the comfort zone one, the organisation, those again are ones that weren't, the past experience developed them least, which is not to say that they weren't already there in the first place. And this one, sadly, is the unhappy leader who really found that the experience didn't work for them at all. This is the opportunity that we gave our leaders to self-reflect. In the first trimester, or up until, in fact, the first trimester of last year, we required our leaders to send a weekly email report. So back to the central administration, to their other leaders, to their mentors, with detail in the subject line. It's a way that we can keep track of attendance. In many cases, the course coordinators were also copied into the memos. And so it was what we did, what went well, and things to work on. And this now, in order to reduce the volume of email traffic from 85 leaders, has been switched to an online forum, which is still a work in progress because not everybody finds that platform sort of amenable. But this was something that leaders were being asked to do each week anyway. And the thought was, how much are they just reporting on, yes, we did a quiz, and yes, we did a worksheet, and yes, we looked at the assignment topic, and how much were they actually reflecting on their performance? Given that for those of them who have opted to be involved in the Victoria Plus program, they will also be required to write a reflective e-portfolio as part of the program, and many of the past leaders just cut and paste from their reports to put that in. So these are some of the report entries that came in. I have selected them because I feel they demonstrate creative thinking. Again, I'm not quite sure whether the leaders were aware of it at the time, but some of them, again, are quite straightforward. We talked earlier, if you listened to Emma's session, about the importance of furniture. Okay, I now know to divide the desks into smaller groups to make students feel more comfortable, and I might break up the friend groups next time round. Okay, this one I love. I would love to have been at this session, the final session of the term, an icebreaker. Would you rather live as you do now or have $10 million a year on condition that an immortal and deadly snail follows you all the rest of your life? Plus brownies. Food, for those of you who are involved with student leaders, know that it's a great way to get groups bonding together. And then this one at the bottom, quite a vocal group, but I've noticed a couple of people seem much shyer than others, so I need to be delicate, not to push them outside their comfort zone. However, once everyone started playing Pictionary and eating and laughing, they seemed to pick up, so that was great. So again, these are things that leaders are stopping and thinking about at the end of each session and reporting it. And similarly, these are ones that I guess I have selected as typifying critical thinking. So if we start sort of from the top one in the sort of think bubble, I need to be a bit more inclusive and not let those from my group last trimester dominate. Yep, that's a thought. Clearly something happened, and it was after the session that the leader thought, I'm going to have to change, do something next week. I guess if I'd been really onto it, I would have got to see if they had followed up. The not being a teacher one, again, those of you who are involved with student leaders know that that's always the tricky part, particularly when we have our focus on ACO and the mutual sort of reciprocal teaching and learning within our study groups. The rushing things, yeah, the time management is always an issue. And this last one at the bottom, not only pleased and delighted me, I suspect it probably also was sort of almost an aha moment for the leader themselves. My past reports have been quite delayed this semester, sometimes not until the night before the next session. I need to make sure I do these as soon as I can so I don't forget about them. This highlights a similar weakness in my own studies, so I'm glad I identified it. I think this is a really interesting one. This leader in particular has really stopped and thought about what they are doing. So, based on this, the fact that we saw the leader's reflections and we thought, people are developing these skills, one of the questions in the survey particularly asked this. So, what has been the impact of writing weekly reflections on the development of your fill in the blank with a particular attribute? Okay. So, one comment was, none, didn't make any difference at all. Most leaders can tell during the session if it's going well, which is fine. It wasn't actually the question, that's okay. Someone identified the critical thinking as being a new skill that they were building. So that was quite nice, the sense of what needed improving and also the strategies. So writing the response to the questionnaire indicated that this leader was now aware. Whether they'd been aware at the time is another matter. And this one, again, I think is quite pleasing because for many of us, it's much easier to be self-critical than it is to self-praise. And here's a leader who has said, I've done something really well, and I think I'll do it again. So writing the reports gave them that chance just to stop and identify the things that were going well for them. So moving on through the questionnaire, just as well as the reflective stuff, we decided, as other people have identified as well, that people have said they either use in their exit interviews with their past leaders or the self-reflective thing at the end of the term. We asked the leaders how they had actually used their past experience. Had they used it in any way, sort of out in the greater world? And so we had 100 leaders respond to this question, and all of them had put being a past leader on their CV. Slightly smaller number had used it for job applications, job interviews they had mentioned. And this, if you listen to Emma's session, we've indicated that we include in our final training debrief the sense that asking job interview type questions and can you think of a time when you have done, used a particular skill or been in a difficult situation, those sorts of things. We're trying to broaden leaders' awareness that while in the very immediate situation, they are a second year student helping first year students through a course that they loved last year, they can also be taking these skills and moving them forward. I said earlier that many of our leaders are still probably active university students, so they have also used past leader for things like scholarships, interns, things like that, and the e-portfolio, which ties up with the Victoria Plus award. And because not many of them are graduates yet, they probably haven't given as much thought to this as they will before they compile their whole award portfolio. So next question, has PASS helped you actually get a job? Yeah, Okay, so again, numbers are smaller, which is hard to know whether the others would have said no or whether they'd just given up by this stage of the questionnaire. Yeah, a lot of them during studies, absolutely. Full time during the holidays. Emma mentioned in her session earlier that one of the mentors last year was asked to be a referee for a student leader. Emma and I are frequently also asked to be referees for leaders for getting jobs. So mostly part-time, full-time. And the after graduating, and so the small number here probably reflects the fact that not many of our leaders have graduated yet. But pleasingly, when I did send out the online survey, which was intended to be anonymous and was, one of the leaders emailed me back directly and apologized that he would be unable to fill in the form because he was busy. He had just taken up a position with PricewaterhouseCoopers in Hong Kong, which seemed to be a nice answer all in itself. And again, going through that one, it's hard to know whether, given that these are high flyers anyway, we're not saying it's pass as such, but at least they are beginning to be aware that skills that they're using day to day and just sort of quite small short-term interactions with people, they can transfer and move further out into the broader context. So this is the indication of where the leaders surveyed have got to at this stage. Tutoring is the next step up. In many programs now, because PASS has been going for a while, we've got quite a nice synergy going that students can become PASS leaders in their second year, or in some cases only in their second trimester at university. They get group facilitation experience. They get to identify all the other sort of self-management techniques and things that they need. In fact, in many ways, we would argue that being a PASS leader is trickier than being a tutor, because often for a tutor you have got a set curriculum that you need to work through. But as a PASS leader, there are of course no sort of power imbalances in terms of marking and assessing work, things like that. So possibly in some courses, say in accounting, for example, in commerce, in law, which all use undergraduate students as tutors, leaders have the opportunity to be a PASS leader for maybe a year and then use that in their application to become a tutor. And as I say, in these other faculties, they have begun to recognise that a PASS leader is going to turn into a very good tutor. So tutoring there, the Victoria Plus is the leadership awards, so they use it with that. Many of them still carrying on with studying, overseas exchanges. Yeah, these are students. The main real jobs, I guess, are in retail. They didn't mention hospitality. Maybe PASS doesn't apply there, but it certainly would in retail in terms of people management and then overseas exchanges. So, as I say, whether they were consciously aware of doing this at the time or whether they just put it on their CV and left it there, but the survey gave people a chance to stop and think, yeah, having been a PASS leader has helped me in these ways. So here are some of the comments that come through. And this possibly is also a response to, I can't remember who it was now earlier, but somebody in the UK who said that they've been a little disappointed at how some of their leaders or mentors have performed in job interviews. So these are quotes from former PASS or PASS leaders saying how they had used their experience. So in this case, working with others and managing others translates into teamwork and collaboration. It's a big advantage when employers know you can handle these types of situations. Second one, interested in the skills that I had gained while being a PASS leader, things like public speaking and competence. They thought these skills would be greatly transferable to the work I'd be undertaking next year, communicating with clients, etc. So this is one where being a PASS leader, which on the one hand is quite a small role. I mean, it's 50 minutes a week, you know, possibly maybe having 2 sessions a week, but that's the most. It's quite a small part of the students' time in general, but they are thinking that these skills can be carried forward. And this last one as well, my employer liked that I was involved with the university and had been given a leadership role. I emphasised it required autonomy and initiative, which they also liked, if they needed someone who could be independent and get the job done. And this one, I had to end with this one. How can you resist? This one I think works really, really nicely. Completely spontaneous. And again, it depends, but those who have passion for learning and teaching hopefully can carry on in that way. So this, in fact, is almost the finale of my presentation. I'll just go slowly on these ones, Michael. I'll tell you when to go next. Thank you. These are the citations that accompany the award of the Victoria Plus Award. So as it's presented on graduation at a separate ceremony, and each recipient has a citation. If you look here, Marie, not surprisingly, in her second year, before she went on to master's studies, was a study group leader in sociology. You can see there she's done a whole range of things. She's been an English language volunteer. She's been a past leader. She's been a Māori and Pacifica mentor. She's been a note taker, class rep, all of those sorts of things. And then she's also undertaken the job-specific workshops through Career Hub. But yeah, being a past leader, in fact, in this case, is up there as number 1. Next slide, please, Michael. Okay, another one. Bruce, past leader in psychology. And you can see there again, class rep, past leader, a lot of volunteer work relating to the subject, which makes good sense, but he's aiming to go on to future study. And the next one, please, Michael. The last one, Mel, who over the years ended up being a past leader for French and for law and for international relations, which is unusual. But again, just the sense of being involved, helping others, and being given the opportunity through not only the Victoria Plus Leadership Award program, but the self-reflection opportunities as a past leader, to just stop and think what it is that they have really gained from the experience. So yeah, I think that's really the end in some ways of what I wanted to share with you. Clearly there are my references, just because I can. And I guess now I would just like to invite comments and questions from people, just on what you think. As I say, in some ways it's quite self-serving. Clearly the leaders who felt the experience hadn't added anything of value, probably with the exception of our one very unhappy candidate, didn't respond. But as we've identified, I think the importance of not only giving students these opportunities, but of making them aware of how they can grow and benefit from these opportunities and carry things forward. Because as we all know, they're going to go into the world with good degrees, but in the job interview situation, it's going to be the added value things that possibly just make the difference. Thank you, Michael, for your comment. It came from the Peer Learning Forum in National Peer Learning Forum hosted by Wollongong University in Melbourne several years ago, where there was this call for, as I say, not only research on how past can help participants, but how it can help leaders and the tracking of them. And it's something that I will work to continue, possibly by trying to be more assiduous in capturing email addresses and things, rather than just going back in some cases 4, 5, 6 years trying to find people who had long left the country. Yeah. Vanessa, engineering, interesting question. We were asked to set up paths in engineering. because they were finding that success rates were very low, primarily because when engineering was set up at this university, it is in fact software engineering rather than bridge building. Many of the students coming in were unaware that they would be required to do calculus and algebra and things that they possibly hadn't had at level 3 at school. And also that the maths component and the physics component of the degree when it was first set up were being taught out of the maths faculty and the physics faculty rather than engineering. They have subsequently rejigged the program so that there is now maths for engineering and physics within their school. But we were asked to set up engineering. We had a very interesting email at the end of the first trimester. I've got to say, nobody came to any of the sessions for one whole trimester. We got an email in the 11th week of term from someone saying, I knew about PASS and engineering, but I didn't really think I needed to go. Guess I'm screwed now, huh? So yeah, it didn't work particularly well in the first year. We ran it again for a second trimester. Numbers built, we had about 10 in the group, but engineering felt that this really wasn't the way they wanted to go, and so they pulled out of the program. So it ran for only 1 year, and yeah. Another issue with PASS was because the timetable is so full, it became very hard to find second years who had the space in their timetable to fit into the first year's timetable to one session. So yeah, long answer, short question. Alumni services, good idea. Thought about it, fell into the too hard, no, I've got 300 email addresses, that'll be enough basket. But you're right, that's definitely the next step. Dawn, leaders of PASS groups generally just take PASS in their majoring subject. In some cases, we've had particularly able leaders who possibly have already had one term, maybe leading the PASS group in one subject, where they've wanted to pick up and do a second one. For example, we had one once who was a PASS leader for law, but he was also studying Italian, and he was fluent enough in Italian to add that on as well. But yeah, generally we would say, given their commitments, given the fact that they're in second year students, they're each doing 4 courses of their own, that they would just do the one course. Postgrad PASS groups. No, I think you guys do, don't you? We've tried it. We've got it as far as it's mostly 100 level, just based on the idea that if the participants can build good study habits, they should be able to go on and keep these patterns going. It also becomes logistical that for first year groups, you need second years available for leaders. We have it in second year psych, which we have third years. We have it in 300 level psych, but by then we are drawing on honours students. And again, the time commitment often just becomes too great. I would love to know how you set up postgrad PASS groups. Yeah. I think at that stage, we probably would suggest that there certainly are peer groups going on. I mean, there are certainly study groups going on in courses that have nothing to do with PASS, that we would hope that it can just grow organically, and you know, the participants can make it work themselves rather than being part of an informal program.